Today's video is going to be about a game of telephone that's done badly, and if I can get to it, a couple of questions I was asked directly. Someone decided to post a bunch of memes in one long diatribe, most of it focused in one comment. And I'm going to read back the answers before I read back the questions, or vice versa. Claim. You can find photos on the internet. They're totally real, authentic, very real, irrefutable, undeniably. Huge, totally stable genius. Stubble genius? That prove the sun is an artificial, technologically created thing, and there's no such thing as a real sun, for some reason. Assertions. Because of a great shift, China will have no sunlight. They're building an artificial sun. Years later, both of them will run into each other. And you can look up The Truth About Our Sun. That's actually not the title, most likely. Eric P. Dollard, claims that he studied, researched, and observed the sun to figure out the truth of it. He still hints at it if you listen closely and carefully to him. Having an open heart and mind and a good memory, and you have to be one of those people who can suss out the reality and be, very intuitive. I like the word intuitive because when someone says they're intuitive, I call them earth smothers because they tend to be of the variety of people I used to criticize. People who claimed to be earth mothers who were very into being super spiritual and talking about new agey shit. Eric P. Dollard, Tesla truther. The only man known to be able to accurately reproduce many of Tesla's experiments, if they were about radiant energy, even though those are mythological, and even Nikola Tesla said after a fact that they weren't what people are claiming. I love it when people misquote and ignore him complaining about being misquoted, Nikola Tesla himself refuting people like Eric P. Dollard. If you use your Electric Universe goggles and see the 2013 video series called 3 Secrets About Our Sun that all have the comments turned off, you too will be a believer, and nobody will know otherwise because the comments are turned off. What is this about? Einstein was wrong, Tesla was right, and if Tesla disagrees with me, he was made to do it because the CIA said so. People assume Nikola Tesla died at one point, when he hadn't, and he popped up like a turd in a punch bowl and told people to stop misusing his research or lying about it. He had to take the gloves off and do something he didn't like doing. Stop being self-promotional, stop being a performer, and tell people in a very simplified technical terms what he did and why people are misinterpreting what he did and saying that he made some mistakes. He also had to explain to people that he's a jokester. He explained to people at one point that he told people a capacitor, resistance, and inductor substitution box was an earthquake machine because he didn't want someone touching the damn thing, so he told them it's an earthquake machine, and they believed him because he was so mind-bendingly genius-level smart that he scared people, which I would love to achieve someday, but I failed. I'm in my 50s. By the time he was in his 50s, he was so impressive and terrifying that Westinghouse actually had a problem with him. But the point I'm making here is, if you claim Nikola Tesla said anything because you see it on the net, it's a lie by definition. This is like the joke about Abraham Lincoln being quoted about the internet. You're supposed to get the joke. Eric P. Dollard and all the others like him waited until the guy died before they said anything because you can't sue from the grave. Anyway, the 3 Secrets About Our Sun, if you want to go through all 100 minutes of video, if you can even find it, because the channels that put up other stuff that got them taken down. It had nothing to do with Eric P. Dollard. You can watch him sitting in a doorway of a car, talking to a camera, prattling on and on and on, massaging your brain, and I guess at one point he wanted donations or not, I don't know. The last time I heard, he does a regular circuit around the country doing talks to true believers who defend him at every point, who won't look up physics. If you can't pass the physics class, you can become Eric P. Dollard. Well, no, he taught classes, right? Anyway, him and the claims about the sun not being real, and China doing a nuclear fusion experiment and hiding it with other news stories as code wording. And the fact that if you use a camera pointed at the sun, the camera's not designed to do that unless it's a sun compliant camera, which it's still not really going to do that either. If you want to, you can go look up this stuff. Do any of these people bringing up any of this leave any links in the description that take you to a synopsis instead of sitting through nearly a feature-length film worth of crap of somebody sitting there babbling? I only waste 15 minutes of your life on purpose. Well, I limit it to 15 minutes on purpose. I'm not trying to waste your time. I'm trying to not waste your time. Baba Vanga, otherwise known and born in 1911 as Vangeliya Pandeva Gushterova Surcheva, I can't pronounce it. Later as Baba or grandmother Vanga, or a substitution for the name. Died in 1996. Semi-illiterate Bulgarian herbalist and mystic. Because she was blind since early childhood, this interfered with her ability to communicate, except verbally. She could utilize only some of the Serbian version of Braille wording, and did not write anything at all on the subject of esoteric predictions or any of her books. In fact, anything she might have written was illegible. She was also not given a Braille typewriter. She had to dictate. At least that's the claim. The works you see with her name on it are the works of other people who testified of what she allegedly said. This was a well-promoted Bulgarian state at the time. Look up who ran Bulgaria. The Bulgarians are the Bulgarians. This was a well-funded, state-run cottage industry promotion. So many of her assertions were vague and or wrong as to not be better than chance, unlike what belivers claim she predicted. She was often mistaken, but this was customary not to disclose it, said a person who worked within the KGB, who is irrefutably in the KGB at the time, who said, yeah, they would use her work as part of propaganda if needed. She was paid for and taken care of by the state because she was an old lady. She had a lot of problems, and she had become a kind of a social icon, and they wanted to keep her for themselves, and she made money for the state. And she never, ever could be traced to what was said about her in her own books, because she did not write them, and this was a cloistered community of people who made the books, because it was a business. As for her predictions, she's been wrong repeatedly, and there are, if you want to, you can go look up websites that contradict it. 1503 to 1566, French astrologer, pharmacist, and doctor. That's the modern parlance of what this guy was. Born Michel de Nostredame, or Nostredame, otherwise known as Nostradamus, wrote 942 poetic predictions or assertions into a book called Les Prophéties, or The Prophets, or Prophets, in 1555. He died wealthy, but died from gout-induced edema. Bet he didn't see that coming. In his case, he basically made one work anybody pays attention to. You might want to look into other things he did that are real, that have a publication date in the 1500s. He died in 1566. Anything after that point should be skeptically evaluated, including that book. Did he predict anything accurately? He avoided doing any prediction correctly in a way that would be an assertion like, somebody named Donald Trump, who will be called the Orange Monster, will take over the planet and rule it with an iron fist and shit on it. Now, that absolutely is not what happened. But if I made that kind of assertion and said his name was Donald Trump, that would work. Well, but he predicted Hitler, the river Hister, not Adolf Hitler. It's a river name. It was explicitly called a river at the time. Well, you got to read between the words. Okay. French astrologer, pharmacist, and medical doctor, last name Nostradamus, wrote a book of poetry. Poetic licenses enabled here. Next, you can read it and find out he misspelled some things. Well, that would be significant. Yeah, but when you translate it in English, do you misspell it a different way and then do numerology on the English language? Which is what I keep seeing people do. They don't want to do it to the original work. Was it originally in French? I want to look up exactly what he did. No, he didn't predict the future, and no, he wasn't accurate, and yes, he made money in his lifespan doing this. And that's it. He wrote a book, that one book that anybody pays attention to. But he was a medical doctor. Did you look up what he did as a medical doctor? Did you look up what he did as a chemist, a pharmacist, as we call it in the United States? Did he come up with a new medication of any kind? Most of you don't know to look that up. He was an astrologer. What are his works about astrology? This is a poetry book that's supposed to be predictions and prophecies. The only thing you pay attention to in a man's life is a bunch of stuff that's so vague it can be applied to any era at any time and has been. Versus, did you find out that he actually came up with a treatment for a couple of diseases? Isn't that significant in some of your minds? Why don't I believe in Nostradamus? That's not a real statement. Do I use him for a source? No, because everything he knew about ended on the day he died in 1566, and he didn't know that human beings could fly. And then Baba Yaga, or Vanga, aka Grandmother Vanga, died in 1996 and failed to predict certain things in the previous years. She got them wrong. She's not a seer. She was a cottage industry exploited by the government of Bulgaria. Eric P. Dullard exploits people wanting to believe that if you fail a physics class, it's not you, it's physics is wrong. That's an oversimplification, but it's completely accurate. Truth About the Sun by him is a long rant that goes on for 100 minutes instead of doing, yes, busting it down, I did it before, is a paragraph of information. He spends 100 minutes not explaining anything to you, but massaging your brain so you won't question his assertion about something. And him lying about being the only person who can understand Nikola Tesla's actual experiments when they're reproduced every day of your life when you turn on your cell phone. Probably should have gotten the patents for it. It was brilliant. But no, this guy brings up bullshit that never happened. Spitting in his face. And yes, Nikola Tesla really did not like people when they thought he was dead, misusing his name for that kind of shit. As for the Chinese putting up a fake sun or moon, they were talking about a fusion generator plant, and they were just kind of keeping it on the low key, but they wanted to do a press release. Next, there is no great shift taking the sun away because the sun doesn't work that way because the earth isn't flat. Please stop posting this shit. Next, there isn't an artificial sun up there because CCD imagers and the camera you have in your cell phone all fuck up the sun the same way. There are very good photos showing this. Yes, a minority of photos still show really shitty images instead of the good ones now. But the only images you can get that really show what the sun looks like is if you put up a filter and everything else looks black, and you can look at what the sun's doing that day. And you can go look at that stuff all the time. You can watch the sunspots and the flames all over the sun. Which, by the way, people were able to see without the aid of a telescope centuries ago and drew it with little licks of fire on it because they figured out a way to block out most of the sun and noticed that a long time ago. Artists. Yes, artists, painters, musicians, people who do something by accident that invites us to learn something. Shock. Anyway, that's my evaluation of most of the comments that person left. Why? Because it was a tour de force of turdy forcing. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.